Father, thank you for having me always. Um, Sorry if I'm a sweaty mess. I was playing soccer while you guys were playing volleyball.
You were right next to us.
I was right next to you guys. I wasn't going to play volleyball because I have a broken finger, but that doesn't stop me from playing soccer. It is going to make my writing somewhat messy. My background is in philosophy, and then I got a law degree, and while I was studying law, I started studying theology, fell in love with theology, and fell in love with our Catholic faith through trying to discern theological truths just through the light of reason, obviously enlightened by faith, but through reason has been kind of the way that God got to me. He got to my head before he got to my heart, probably because I'm very stubborn and prideful. So he needed to just break down the walls of my intellect in order to have me embrace the faith fully. And so what I would like to do is, I don't know how many sessions we're going to have, but as long as we're having some, I would like to have a series of talks just on the fundamentals of the faith, but just seen as if we were talking purely from a rational perspective, purely from the light of reason. Does that make sense? So what I'm about to talk about is deductively sound. You can map this stuff out with formal logic, symbolic logic, mathematics. Any way you break it, it's pretty much impossible to counter these arguments, which have been around for forever, and yet have been somewhat forgotten in the modern world. So that's the hope. That's the idea. So for a second, I know we have a priest here and a cassock. What we want to do is take off we are all fully formed traditional Catholic hats and just pretend we're just starting from scratch. Because I think that's a helpful approach. Okay, having said that, the foundation upon pretty much all philosophical inquiry has to do with truth. But unfortunately, this notion has become quite popular. Now, this is basically what's taught. It's taught throughout high schools and colleges and even at, advanced, degree level. It's taught that there's no such thing as truth. Truth is a social construct. Have you guys heard this term? Right? There's books out there of famous actors who are doing their autobiographies, and it's like living my truth, speaking your truth. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. I can't be inside of your experience, so I can't experience your truth. I don't even know if what you see as red is the same as what I see as red. What I experience as love, you might experience as hate. What I experience as pain, you might experience as pleasure. So it's all subjective. It's all just a matter of perspective. That's what's taught. Does that kind of ring true? I hate to use the pun of truth, but yes, isn't that kind of the experience that we're seeing kind of in the world, right? What's wrong with this statement? Who wants to give it a crack? Yeah. Exactly right. So if someone starts with the preposition that there is no truth, your response to that is that true? You guys get that? Someone says there is no truth. Is that true? Because what you're really saying is this. You're saying it is true that there is no truth. The second you say there is no truth, you're making a truth claim. Now, it would be helpful to define truth. We're going to use the classical definition of truth, which is the adequation of thought to reality. So if what we have in our mind corresponds with reality, then we arrived at the truth. Going that way, truth is very objective because it's grounded in reality. So there is a podium here. Anyone who says otherwise is wrong, might not be any fault of theirs. Maybe they don't know the definition of a podium, maybe there's something wrong with their eyes, maybe etc., etc. But the reality is what informs the truth. Because if it doesn't, as we will see, we're going to get into all kinds of issues. So we have to start by rejecting this. Someone says there is no truth, you ask, is that true? Because what you're really saying is, it is true that there is no truth. You're making a truth claim. As a young lady, what's her name? As Rachel said, this is self-defeating. The second you say it, you've negated it. It's like saying I gave birth to myself. It's like saying this podium exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It's just contradictory. It's just ridiculous. Right? You can't start with this premise. Well, Leo, I didn't mean that there's no such thing as truth. Sure, there's a podium here. But I mean there's no such thing as objective truth, as a truth that is true for everybody at all places at all times. There's no such thing as objective truth. What do you say to that? Is that objectively true? The fact that there is no objective truth, does that apply to all people at all times? Because if it doesn't, then what you're saying is meaningless. Well, I don't mean there's no objective truth. I mean there's no universal truth that applies to everyone. Same thing. No matter how you slice it, we have to get to the fact that there is no truth is false, which means it is true, you have to negate it, that there is truth. Does that make sense? That's our premise. That's where we start. We start from the fact that there is truth, and that truth is objective, meaning it is not based on our perception. It is based on reality. And it is necessary for us to adequate our thoughts to that reality. Okay, any questions on this? Because what you've just walked into is realist philosophy. Realist philosophy is most famously expounded by St. Thomas Aquinas, is the philosophy of the church. Pope after pope and even councils have determined this. I believe it was one of the Piuses, either the 9th or the 11th, who basically elevated the philosophy of realism, the philosophy of St. Thomas, as that of the church. And it is what was used, that was council after council, to define the things of our faith. But apart from that, it just is. It is self-evident that there is truth. And we know this because when we go to the contrapositive, when we try to counter it, we're going to get into the conundrum, and then we're stuck with there is truth. All right? Everyone with me still? Good. So if we accept as a premise that there is truth, well then, the next question is, what can we know to be true? Now, I like to use a silly example that we're going to build off of, but go with me for a second. And forgive my crude drawing, especially with a broken pinky finger. It's not easy. But let's presume this here is a tree. And let's presume that this leaf, it's a massive leaf for that tree, but that's okay. Let's presume this leaf fell from that tree. Okay? Let's presume that we're all sitting here, and that tree actually exists in real life, and it's right over there. And as we are sitting here, we see that leaf fall from that tree. Just a single leaf falls from the tree. We're calling our definition of truth, adequation of thought to reality. What can we know about the reality of that act? What can we say with absolute certainty that is irrefutable if we sat here and we all saw a leaf fall from a tree? Please indulge me and give me some ideas. What do you think that we can know with absolute certainty about the fact that a leaf fell from a tree? Yes, in the back. That the leaf fell from a tree. So that's just circular, right? The leaf fell from a tree, therefore the leaf fell from the tree, therefore the leaf fell from the tree. But she's right. One thing that we all recognize is our eyes witness this thing, right? And there's all kinds of reasons we'll get into later why we trust our senses as telling us what reality really is. If you don't do that, you get into all kinds of craziness. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole for now, but let's just presume that our senses are telling us what's out there. Okay, so we all saw this leaf fall from the tree. So that's the first basic tenet of truth that we grasp. What else can we know for sure? Yes, sir?
Something caused it to fall.
Something caused it to fall. Now, it's getting complicated. Because now you're talking about cause and effect, and then you might even get into quantum theory and gravitational pull and all kinds of stuff. Right? So, although we know that is true, I want to draw us back to something that's even more simple. Right? Something caused, you know what? Let's go with that. If there is an effect, can we say with certainty that there is a cause? Who says no? Yes, it's built into the definition of effect, isn't it? An effect is that which has happened, and we know a thing can't cause itself to do the thing that it is doing. Now, there's a massive exception that we're going to get to when we talk about free will. But for now, when it comes to the material world, we know even if we didn't know the laws of inertia and thermodynamics and all that sort of stuff, we know that if there's a billiard ball, white ball that's rolling, and it strikes another one, and that other one rolls into the hole, that the white hit the black into the hole. That make sense? Our senses tell us this thing. So we're going to assume this as a premise. Wherever there's effect, there's a cause to that effect. Is that controversial, or is that pretty straightforward? All right. So we can add two things. We saw the leaf fall. Something caused that leaf to fall. All right. What else can we know with certainty? Yes. It's on the ground now. It may or may not be. What if it fell on a little squirrel? And the little squirrel started running off. What if it, is blowing in the wind and it's just perpetually getting, right? That might be the case if we see it. But for the sake of argument, we're just seeing it in midair. What else can we know? Yes?
The leaf came from the tree.
Well, there you go. The leaf was on the tree, right? Because if there were no tree, there would be no leaf. And if there were no leaf, then the leaf wouldn't fall, right? That's the sort of logic we're looking for. Stuff that is incontrovertible. That is absolutely 100% deductively sound and certain. We saw the leaf on the tree. The leaf fell from the tree, which means the leaf was on the tree. Go to the next step. Yes, sir.
Trees have leaves.
Trees have leaves. This particular tree has this particular leaf. I'll go even further. It has a branch. Let's presume that this is a branched tree, right? It has a branch, and the leaf was on the branch. I know this sounds very, very silly, but I'm getting somewhere with it. What else can we know? Is that it? Is that as far as our logic can go? Huh?
The tree was alive.
The tree exists. Good. So in fact, we know if there was a branch, there was a trunk. It had to be a trunk for there to be the branch, for there to be the leaf. How about this? There had to be a little sapling for there to be a trunk, for there to be a branch, for there to be a leaf, for the leaf to fall. Does that make sense? Had to be a seed, for there to be a sapling, for there to be a trunk, for there to be a branch, for there to be a leaf. You guys get where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
How far back can we go? Huh? Let's take it, yeah. Something had to be water. Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know exactly. We don't have to get into the botanics of it and watering and, right? But that's exactly right. Something had to cause this sapling, this seed, to grow into a sapling and so on and so forth, right? Let's take a massive leap. This is not to scale. That's the earth. There had to be the earth, didn't there? If there were no earth, there'd be no seed, there'd be no sapling, there'd be no trunk, there'd be no branch, there'd be no tree. Now, I know it's a big leap from the branch, but we know it's to be true. This is incontrovertible, isn't it? Okay? There had to be whatever there was prior to the earth in order for the earth to be here, in order for eventually that seed to go into a sapling, to go into a trunk, to go into the branch, the leaf, and the leaf to fall. Yes? Well, that's a big leap, isn't it? That's the conclusion she's getting to, right? How far back can we go? You're going to say to the Creator? Yeah. Well, that's because you guys are all believers. All right. Wow. See, now we're getting even deeper. So we call these classes going deeper. But before we get there, let's take the intermediate steps. Because what I'm going to teach you, hopefully, is the logical process to get precisely there. How far back can you go? At some point, our knowledge is going to dissipate into the ether. We're not going to know what the thing is. But before the Earth, there had to be the solar system. And before the solar system, there had to be the galaxy. And before the galaxy, there had to be something. And then there was something, right? We'll get to that. And there was something. And there was something. We don't know what these things are, but there was definitely something that led to something, that led to something, that led to something, that led to the solar system, that led to the Earth, that led to the seed, that led to the leaf, right? You're saying no. Or you're just shaking your head. Okay, good. In fact, conceptually, how far back can we go? I'm going to say that we can probably go back. You guys know what this symbol is? We can go back infinitely far. We don't know at what point the knowledge kind of ends, but wherever it is, we can say there must have been something before that, and something before that, and something. We don't know what it is, but there was something, and there was something, and there was something. Does that make sense? You guys with me? You keep going on back towards infinity, right? Raise your hand if you agree with that. Let me give you an example. Let's say my wife happens to be an awesome baker. She's gluten-free, so her gluten-free baking is terrible, but when she bakes really normal stuff, it's awesome. And so let's say she baked this batch of brownies, and they're delicious, and they've got caramel and nuts, and they're just gooey, and they're just awesome, right? And I'm like, Jax, these brownies are delicious. What's the recipe? And she says, it's a very simple list of ingredients. I was like, yeah, what are they? And she says, well, the list of ingredients is infinitely long. What's wrong with that picture? And I have the brownie right here in front of me. Humor me, please. Yes. Why?
I mean, just so you know, I was a minor in philosophy, but
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
it's the infinite regress.
Yes.
So we know by experience that things that exist in the material world start and end, and so it makes no sense to say.
But go to the actual example, without going to the material world and the nature of physics. The actual example. There's a brownie right here. My wife says there's an infinitely long list of ingredients. What's wrong with that picture? Yes, sir.
Because there's not infinite brownies.
Because what?
Because there's not infinite
Well, there's just one brownie.
Yeah.
Right, but she's saying this one brownie had an infinite list of ingredients.
You take an infinite time to put all the ingredients in there.
There you go. You guys see that? The fact that there is a brownie here means however long the list of ingredients it took to make the brownie cannot be infinitely long. Why? Because of what my father said. The person will be forever collecting ingredients and will never arrive at the actual brownie. The second you bite into that brownie, you know that however long the list of ingredients are, it's finite. Why? Because there's a brownie. Does that make sense? Does everyone grasp that? Does everyone see how it's impossible to have a brownie with an infinitely long list of ingredients without having to go into physics and the nature of matter? You with me? Because there's a brownie. Okay. Now,
time it takes to acquire an additional half of the previous
it would be forever.
and then be able to finish an infinite list of ingredients.
Would you ever arrive at a brownie that's chewable? That's exactly right.
So that's the
Yes.
subtlety.
Yes. Very wise. Nicely done. But we still get to the same point. Okay. Now, you guys know I was playing soccer, right, at the park. You know how far that park is from here? I had to walk. It's infinity that way. All right. What's wrong with that picture?
Well, how are
Huh?
you here?
Exactly. The very fact that I arrived implies that however long it took me to run from the park, to walk from the park, it couldn't have been infinitely long. Right? But to get to this gentleman's point, but hold on a second. Isn't this an infinity? Just keep cutting in half, keep cutting in half, keep it out. Look at me. I'm walking over an infinity. Right? No, this is a bounded infinity. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about infinity in space and time. Infinity in causes and effects. Both of those are impossible. They're impossible because events actually happen. The fact that I arrived means however far I ran or walked, it wasn't infinitely that way. It wasn't infinitely far. I would be forever taking steps to never arrive. No matter how long the list of ingredients are in the brownie, it can't be infinitely long. Why? Because there's a brownie. We're chewing it. It's delicious. Make sense? Good. So now, all of you who raise your hands, sorry, I caught you in a trap. What's wrong with this? Can the list of causes that preceded the falling of the leaf be infinitely long? No. Everyone has changed their mind now, haven't they? Why not? Exactly right. We all saw the leaf fall from the tree. Because we saw the leaf fall from the tree, everything that has caused that leaf to fall, all the ingredients that are necessary to bake the leaf falling from the tree have already happened. Why? Because the leaf fell. If the leaf fell, there can't be an infinitely long list of causes preceding the falling of the leaf, because that would be forever collecting the ingredients and never getting to the brownie. However much time it took, however much space it took to get to this leaf falling from the tree, it couldn't be an infinite amount of space and time. Why? Because you would never arrive at this point. Just like with running from the park. Does that make sense? There she goes. Fantastic. We're going to get to that. Right? You guys get the point? Science is, no, they're really smart. Wow, the universe is 16.5 billion years old. Right? What I see there when I hear that is, it's not infinitely old, is it? That implies something. That implies this. Just like with there is no truth, this is impossible. This is self-refuting. The leaf falls from a tree. It can't be preceded by an infinitely long list of ingredients, which means this is false. Infinite long list of causes, which means however long the causes are, however far back you go, it doesn't even matter whether you know what they are. You know one thing for certain, that they are not infinite, which means they are finite. Does that make sense? It means in theory, whatever these causes were that resulted in the leaf falling, whatever they are, we can count them, even if we don't know what they are. We can presume there was a trillionth thing that happened that then resulted in a billionth and a millionth and a thousandth and a hundredth and then a 10th thing that happened and then the third thing that happened and the second thing that happened, and then eventually you get to this. You get to a first cause, don't you? You have to. Why? Because the leaf fell. Why? Because you can't have an infinite number of causes preceding it. That means they're finite. That means there's a first. This tells us everything. Why? What's the big deal about this one? Yes?
Because in order for infinite regress to stop, that cause can't have been caused by something else.
Correct. Nailed it. If this is the first cause, that means it's different than everything that follows. Why? Because the second cause is preceded by the first cause. What precedes the first cause? Well, another cause. The first cause. And then if there was a first cause, what's that? The first cause. And then what? You get back into the infinite regression and the leaf never falls from the tree. The madness has to stop. Why? Because we saw the leaf fall, which means this first cause is not preceded by a previous cause, which means this first cause is different than everything that comes after it, which was preceded by a previous cause, like I just caused that thing to fall. Which means this first cause is, what did you say there at the end? It can't have been caused. This first cause is uncaused. Now we have something different here. Now logically we've gotten something that is radically, essentially something other than everything that we experience. Why? Because what is true of the falling of the leaf is true of every single thing that anybody, anywhere, has ever experienced. It's true of everything, everywhere that has ever happened. If it has happened, it was preceded by some sort of cause, some sort of time, some sort of space. And if so, it can be preceded by an infinite amount of these, which means it has to trickle all back to the first cause. Just makes sense. So by uncaused, we mean radically different than everything that comes after it. And what we mean is, I don't know if you can read this in the back, can you?
Self-sufficient.
Thank you. Self-sufficient. What do we mean by self-sufficient? What do you think I mean by self-sufficient? Yes. That's one way to say it. Try again. Go deeper. It's another way of saying uncaused, and I want you to grasp an element of this. Yes?
It does not require anything.
There you go. Doesn't require any other thing for it to exist. It exists of its own, radically different than everything else that comes after it. It is also, I like to say really. Some people prefer supremely. But it is insanely powerful. Why? Why would I use that? Say that again? Because everything would be contingent upon this thing. Because what is true of falling leaf is true of the fact that short exists, the ground exists, this, the solar system, all right. So everything that we were talking about is going to root down to this for what? For its very existence. The very existence of the thing. Remember, we said it's not finite, which means it's not infinite, which means it's finite, which means there's a time when it wasn't, and then it was. And that existence itself can trace itself to this uncaused first cause. Is everyone with me so far? How many of these things can there be? We want to say one, because we're all good monotheist Thomists here. Why? Who wants to prove that there's only one? Go ahead, sir.
So if you think about the objection in principle, like the example would be that if you were making a cake, each of the cause for the existence.
Okay.
However, in order for each of those ingredients to come together to form the cake, they are contingent upon
Beautiful.
all of the other ingredients.
Beautiful.
And therefore, if there were multiple first causes, then they would each be upon each of the other first causes in order to have the final product.
Absolutely nailed it. Give this man a PhD. He absolutely rocked it, right? This is a tough one to grasp, right? We're gonna walk through it very, very simply so that everyone can get this. At this point, is everyone with me on the uncaused first cause, self-sufficient, really powerful? We can kind of grasp these without, they're almost self-evident. They almost just make sense when you follow the argument. This one, that there's only one, requires some going deeper. So here we go. Let's presume, exactly as what's your name? Sasha? It's actually Sasha posited that let's presume there's more than one first cause. Let's presume that there's first cause. Well, if this is the first cause, isn't it being the first require that there be only one? Why? Huh? Because it's first. Because if there's more than one first, which one exactly is the first? Okay, so just by its nature, it seems like it's pushing us towards one, but I'm like, aha, I got you. Why? Because what if there's two? Oh, I need to, let's do this. What if there's two simultaneous first causes? It says first cause sub 1, first cause sub 2, and both of these simultaneously went boom and started everything. Now, the gentleman Sasha already told us why this is impossible, but I want someone else to give it a try. Why is this, looking at that picture here, why is that impossible? Yes?
At least from the definition we gave out, I'm not saying they be self-sufficient.
Beautiful. So we would undo self-sufficient. In other words, here's what that would look like. This is going to be, I'm just using a crude analogy, right? This is first cause 1 and first cause 2, sub 2. Both of these first causes result together, let's say, like this. There's both of their causal power that then resulted in the creation of everything. For that to be the case, there has to be some common medium. In other words, there has to be some methodology, some way that both of these causal powers can meet at this point. Doesn't that require a common medium between the two? In other words, rough analogy picture, but just so you can get your mind around it, doesn't that require there be something that unites the causal powers so that they can meet at the point of creation? Where did this come from? Because if it came from first cause 1, then first cause 2's ability to cause was dependent upon first cause 1. Or did it come from first cause 2? Because if it came from first cause 2, then first cause 1's ability to cause is contingent upon first cause 2. Or this is uber first cause that then encompasses both first causes so that they can meet at that causal point. Does that make sense? In which case, where did uber first cause come from? Now we get into that issue, and eventually we're going to get to the reduction of the absurdity of the infinite. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
So logically, maybe I'm tracking this incorrectly, but that would make the second first cause not really powerful either.
Exactly right.
Other than the first cause, because it would have to be ultimately or the most powerful.
Exactly right. Right, so there would be an imbalance of power, which means that this causal power is not of its own. It's neither self-sufficient, nor is its power uncaused, nor is it really powerful because it relies on the power of this one or on the power of the uber first cause to have the causal power to create. Does that make sense? And the same thing we can do with the uber first cause. What if there was 2 uber first causes and then you got a bigger, you see what I'm saying? And then eventually, no matter how you slice it, you're going to get down to just one. So let's say we can ignore all this and just say that the first cause is the uber first cause and there's only one. Does that make sense? Who doesn't grasp that? Is there anyone who wants to try to parse this out a little more, needs a little more? We're all good? Okay, so here's what we have. What we have so far is one and only one uncaused first cause whose effect is everything that has happened in the universe. It's pretty good because a leaf fell from a tree. Went pretty far, didn't we? Let me ask this. What material did the first cause use to create? What we're really talking about here is the universe. We get that, right? Because when we started going back, we're saying the galaxy, and we're saying what we're really talking about is all things that have a cause or effect, because that's what we're talking about when we talk about really powerful. And it all traces back to this one first cause. Okay, so what pre-existing material did this first cause use to create the universe? Good. We already caught it, right? Excellent. So who wants to explain the rabbit hole? Who wants to explain why it has to be nothing? Let's someone without a philosophy degree. Thank you. We'll get back to you. Anyone want to try? It helps. Trust me, guys. It might be uncomfortable and awkward, but it helps to vocalize this stuff. The more you vocalize it, the more you'll be able to understand it. Yes, sir.
Out of nothing.
Yes.
Because if there is some matter to like play with, it means that was already created.
Beautiful.
And since he's playing in like a playing field, if you were to put him in a playing field, the playing field would have been had to create it as you were saying earlier.
That's right. You guys got that? So he used the awesome Latin term ex nihilo, which means from nothing. From nothing. Because if there was this matter that was then taken from the first cause and used to cause the universe, where did this come from? Oh, it came from first cause sub 2, and then you see what we're saying? Right? So once you have this framework, we can start filling in kind of the logic of it all. In other words, what we're talking about here is an entity that created everything from nothing. From nothing. And we know this because the leaf fell from a tree. We're not talking faith here. We're not talking revealed truth. We're just talking logic and reason right now. It had to be from nothing. Now, does nothing exist? Because here's what we don't mean. What we don't mean by from nothing was that there is nothing, and then from that nothing, the first cause caused. No. We don't mean that, because that would be a physical impossibility. That's what the Big Bang, by the way, posits. The Big Bang is this. There was nothing, and then it exploded. Now, I'm being colloquial about it, but that's essentially what it comes down to. Oh, no, Leo, you didn't read Stephen Hawking. At the point of singularity, gravity breaks down, and we don't exactly know what... It's all garbage. Right? It really means that there was nothing, and then the nothing created everything. That's not what this means. It means there was something, and that something is the first cause. And it means the first cause used nothing because it is self-sufficient, other than its own power, than its own existence to create. That's what we mean by ex nihilo. That's what we mean. That's what we mean when we say it created everything from nothing. We mean no pre-existing material, because that's impossible, and we mean nothing other than its own power, its really powerful, self-sufficient existence. Does that make sense? Good. To close the loop for tonight, because I know we've gotten through a lot. What was there before the first cause? Think of this. Think it through. Think it through. Think it through. What was there before the first cause? Our philosophy expert wants to chime in. Go ahead.
I mean, there can't have been something before the first cause, because then it wouldn't be first. So the first cause has to have always existed.
Does that make sense? All right? You guys we can already kind of grasp this. Whatever that was which was before would require existence of its own apart from the first cause in order for it to precede the first cause. We know that's impossible because the first cause caused all these things that can be measured by time. So when someone asks a question, what was there? Let's jump to the chase. Well, so what was there before God? Right? The answer is there is no before. Because time, as we'll see next time, is a measure of the here and now and not something that's applicable to the first cause. But in a certain sense, we can say this. We can't say that there can't be anything that precedes the first cause. And that being the case, the first cause is not subject to time. And that's where we'll start next time. The first cause is, in fact, eternal. We'll go very deep into that one next time. Okay? But for now, recall the argument. There is no truth is impossible. There has to be truth. We know truth because it's an adequation of our thoughts to what is in reality. We know that from experience, and it's very self-evident. Again, we're going to go deeper into that definition later. Accepting it for now, whatever we see to be the case tells us something about the truth of the thing. Whatever we hear, whatever we taste, whatever we touch. That being the case, if we were to see a leaf fall from a tree, we can conclude that there had to be a bunch of other stuff that happened prior to it in order for the leaf fall. How do we know? Because we saw the leaf fall. That being the case, it had to be preceded by a number of causes. The list of causes couldn't be infinitely long. 2 examples. What was the first? the examples by analogy that we use by we can have infinite causes. You guys remember? Brownies, right? The second you're biting into that brownie, however long the list of ingredients can't be infinitely long. What was the second example? The park. I ran from the park. However far I ran, it couldn't have been infinitely long. Same with this. However many causes, the ingredients that are necessary to bake the falling of the leaf can't be infinitely long. However much space and time was required prior to the fall leaf couldn't be infinitely long. Why? Because the leaf fell, which means the causes are not infinite, which means they're finite, which means in theory you can count them. Even if you don't know what they are, there was a first. And if it's the first, there's no cause preceding it, which means it is uncaused. And if it's uncaused, that means its existence is not accountable to anything. It doesn't cause itself to exist. It is purely uncaused, which means it is self-sufficient. And if it is self-sufficient, then it has existence and gives existence to everything that comes after it, which means it's really powerful. What is true of the leaf, we could have picked any example, anywhere, in any time, done the exact same analysis, and come back to one. Why one? Because if there's more than one, even simultaneous, we get into an infinite regression problem. Which one was necessary for the common medium for the both of them to interact at that point of causation would require one of them to supersede the other, or an uber first cause. Then we get into the infinite regression problem, which means there has to be only one. Couldn't create anything from anything pre-existing, because where did that come from? Which means it created everything from nothing. And we'll talk about next time. It is outside of space and time. Not bad for a leaf falling from a tree, right? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, et hora mortis nostre.
Siate sapientia. In the name of the Father, and of the Son. Father, do you want to bless the food? Yeah, thank you.